All right, Entree Architect community, it's 4 p.m. Eastern, which means it's time for the Entree Architect Context and Clarity live conversation for Thursday, March 17th, 2022. Welcome. Thanks for joining us. As you get here, say hi. Let us know that you're here and let us know where you're joining the conversation from. If we've never met before, my name's Jeff. I come here every weekday afternoon at 4 p.m. Eastern. I'm in Indianapolis, Indiana, but I want to know who you are, where you are. It's fun to see where these conversations spread throughout the world. We come here every afternoon to find clarity around the things that matter most to you, the architect. Doesn't matter if you're the employee of a firm or you own your own firm. Maybe you've circled a date on the calendar. You said 2022 is my year, and you're on the runway to starting your own thing. Or maybe you have owned your own firm for a year or 10 years or 28 years. You're starting to rethink or reimagine what that firm could or probably even should be. All of the topics that we cover, one topic every day, they all fall under the broad umbrella of the business of architecture. And they're all the need to know topics for the success of small firm architects just like you. So thanks for joining us here today. Great to have you with us. As always, on these Thursdays for Context and Clarity Live, I am joined by my co-host, Katharine MacPhail. Hi, Katharine.
Hi, Jeff. How's it going?
How is everything in the real world where you are?
It's a lot. There's a lot going on in my real world. But, one thing that was nice that happened to me today was that I got an invitation from you to be a speaker on this show, which I know I was
Oh,
going to be here anyway. But the fact that I was invited to be a speaker, I
it's
felt I
probably
felt like special. I felt
it's
like
probably the first time you've ever been invited.
I know it is. So thank you for
So
that. Thanks. It made my day.
you're welcome. That's
Yep.
that's for those of you out there that wonder about persistence. That's a great lesson. You just keep showing up, and eventually you'll be invited.
Yeah. That's my secret.
That's the secret. Well, I'm looking around the room right now, and as is our tradition here, I'm looking at my screen and I see Christian from Ithaca, New York on my screen first today, which means that Christian is the winner of today's John Kenny Memorial Crocheted Bathtub Award. That's the award that we give out for the first person in the room for each of our episodes. So Christian, congratulations on that not minor victory. Glad that you're here. Thank you for joining us, and thanks for being in first. So Christian's joining us from Ithaca, like I said. Chris Novelli is joining us from Massachusetts. Benita is giving us a little wave from Atlanta. John Jones is joining us from his car. Careful, John, as you drive, and context and clarity all at the same time. He's over in Connecticut. Mark LePage, welcome back from Waxhaw, North Carolina. It looks like we have friends also on YouTube and on LinkedIn, several on Twitch as well. I haven't seen Twitter yet, so hopefully we'll have somebody from Twitter pop up. One thing to keep in mind, if you're joining us from somewhere on Facebook, you're either joining us from the Entree Architect Community Facebook group or the Entree Architect Architects and Allies group. Both of those are closed groups. And with Facebook privacy policies, that means that you have to give Facebook permission to let your name and likeness out. So if you're commenting right now, if you're on Facebook and you're commenting, but your comment is not showing up on the right-hand side of the screen as we see it right here, then all you need to do is take a look at the lower left corner of your screen right now. There's a URL down there. It's chat.restream.io/FB, like Facebook. And if you put that into your browser, go there. A couple of clicks later, you can give Facebook permission to communicate with Restream, which is this platform that we use, and your comment will start showing up. I think that's the only platform where we run into that issue. But if you're on another platform and the same thing is happening, just shorten where you are. So LinkedIn, type LI instead of FB and see if that works. But it's probably only if you're on Facebook. And you've never been here before. I see Sylvia has joined us from Germany. Great to have you with us, Sylvia. Rod says 99% of success is showing up. Well, thanks for showing up, Rod, from Louisiana. Glad you're joining us today as well. Ethan's over there on LinkedIn. And there you go. Design Freedom Inc.
Has
Hello
a
from YouTube.
shamrock. That's why I brought
Shamrock.
it up. Because do you know
Exactly.
why?
Happy St. Patrick's Day for those. Is that a completely U.S. thing?
Mostly, yeah, but I didn't know if it was a completely Boston thing or mostly they go nuts for it here, so I just didn't know how much
Uh,
it shows up in the rest of the country.
Boston and Savannah, Georgia. Audrey, welcome back from
Savannah,
Australia.
Georgia.
She's back in sync with the U.S. times. Yes, we just had our time change here in the U.S. Maybe for the last time, by the way. A little trivia,
Mm,
little legislative trivia happening right now. We may not change times anymore after a few weeks from now. But
well,
great to have you back with us, Audrey from Australia. So that means that now my guess is that Audrey is leading the competition. So we have two competitions. We had the crocheted bathtub for the first in, and the furthest virtually traveled is our other award that we give out. We
mm,
give out a crocheted yacht award for that. Audrey's over in Australia. That's about as far away from
mm.
Indianapolis,
Well,
where I am, as you
yeah,
can
we
get.
have had the Earth sandwich conversation a few times, so we know that that is pretty much the other side of the Earth from you.
It is pretty much the other side of the earth. So, welcome to all of you. Glad that you're joining us here today. Looking forward to this conversation. We've got we've got a guest in the green room, and as usual, we have provided green M and M's, lots and lots and lots of green M and M's for our guest in the green room. And it looks like so we're getting a couple comments that says my voice is a little staticky, a little
Yeah.
glitchy.
Apparently, I'm clear, but you have static.
Okay, let me check a
That's
couple
a
settings here real quickly.
I think that's a
Uh,
message that I should be talking to all the talking today.
well, just take it away then.
That is from the Metaverse. No, I would never do that, except for the last time we talked about the Metaverse. But I won't do that today.
And you already just gave away what we're talking about today.
Oh, that's why I'm
Sorry.
not in charge.
No, you're absolutely in charge.
Mm,
Well, let's see. Hopefully, the voice thing clears up. I don't see any reason right now that it should be glitchy. Well, my bandwidth looks a little bit low, so we'll see if that clears up here. But in the meantime, let me go ahead and introduce our guest because we may be running out of green M and M's by now in the green room. They go
I see her
fast.
eating them all. Yeah, she's eating them
Yeah,
all.
yeah. Or at least
And
they
then
go fast when I'm eating them. I don't know about anybody else, but let me make a little introduction here. Our guest today is an entrepreneur, a founder, and an architect. She's the visionary futurist that went straight from architecture school to the metaverse. She's the founder and chief metaverse architect of the Spaces DAO, which means decentralized autonomous organization. So DAO DAO for those of us that are not familiar with the term. So Spaces DAO. Fatemeh Monfared, welcome to Context and Clarity Live.
Hi, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's great to have you here. I know Katharine and I are both excited.
mm,
I'm
We
super
love these
excited too.
we love these conversations. And we were talking before we got started that, as usual, and I don't think this is any mystery to you, I don't think this is any surprise to you, that there are plenty of people in our community, in the audience, who just don't get it. This is so new. We don't know anything about it. We don't know, what we should even think about. We don't know what we don't know. So, we'll start this exploration and see where it goes. And we just appreciate you joining us here to hopefully add some clarity to all of our questions here. So, one of the things that I found as I was doing research over the past week, this actually surprised me quite a bit. I found an article in Fast Company magazine where the author of the article said the metaverse doesn't exist yet. And I went, that's interesting. I hadn't heard that yet. And it went on to quote Adobe's chief product officer, Scott Belsky, who said, what we're calling the metaverse really is just an immersive experience in which we are present together and we are able to collaborate and have a synchronous experience. I don't know if I said that right. Synchronous experience. So, given that, what would you say that the metaverse is, and is it here?
I totally agree with what you just said. The metaverse, as we want it to be, is actually not here yet. But it's the beginning of something that is going to going to become the metaverse. So right now we have a bunch of different platforms that offer you 3D real-time rendered virtual experiences, and these can be immersive experiences. And some of these platforms don't even allow you for an immersive experience. It's just a web experience, and a lot of them have incorporated tech for it to be more immersive using VR and AR and sometimes even XR. But I mean, like, we haven't really gone that far with it. And in my opinion, the metaverse has the potential to become the future of internet. It's basically going to become the way that we interact. It's the second layer of how we interact with each other, and it kind of happened, and it was all just, a lot of attention went towards it, and a lot of companies started working towards that because of this whole shift towards the virtual that we had as a civilization in general as well. And that was like fast forwarded because of the pandemic and how we all had to stay at our homes and we couldn't travel so much anymore. And a lot of the aspects of our day-to-day life just moved virtual. And the experiences we were getting from calls, whether through Google Meet and Zoom and the normal social media platforms weren't making the cut anymore. And everyone was thinking about how can we advance that and how can we get a more immersive experience out of that. And that's where these platforms came to birth. And honestly, the metaverse, the word is overused. I agree with that 100%. And the metaverse, as we define it, as this fully immersive experience where we connect with each other, is something that we haven't 100% achieved yet. But it is a long road to get to it as well. So we're very much at the beginning of that long road of achieving that and having that fully immersive metaverse platform that is interoperable. So as well, I think that's a really important topic that has been the topic of 2022 in the metaverse space, and everyone's talking about interoperability and how are we going to achieve. So basically, like, someone was asking me, is it going to be different metaverse platforms and one is going to make it and the rest are going to dissipate? No, it's going to be different metaverse platforms that connect to each other through a system. So you have an open metaverse of different platforms that are connected to each other, and that is achieved through interoperability. And I think that's the part of technology that we're hoping to achieve and get to.
I'm glad you explained interoperability, because that was that was going to be. I was trying to remember number one, what was the word, and then what does the word mean, and you. So I appreciate you explaining it there. So as we think about what's there today, what's out there today, a lot of the pushback that I think we see in here is, well, there's a lot of people out there making a lot of money selling NFTs, and everything is based on the blockchain and crypto and these types of things. So is there more to the metaverse and what we do in the metaverse than simply, I don't know if I should say simply, but simply just making money? Is there more to it than that?
Definitely. I mean, I think one of the problems that I actually have is the focus of social media or the general media towards the money side of things. So the headlines are all about this NFT sold for that much or this virtual house sold for that much, and it's not about that. It's actually about so much more than that, and we need to focus on all the other beautiful things that are being created and are being developed. And from my experience, I came into the space and I immediately was confronted by a community. And this community are all working together to build beautiful things. Sorry, beautiful things for the future. And every project that I see has a mission behind it, has a why, has a really clear why that is bringing something to the society as a general and also to the space. So I think that it's not just about making money, and it's a lot about doing good. It's a lot about making a better connection for experience for the users, and it's all about creating that community and giving back that community as well. So for example, with NFTs, I was talking to an artist who was explaining to me how the process of NFT, like how the art scene works in the real world, where you have your art piece and then you work with a gallery to sell off your work, and you have to go through the process where the gallery takes a commission, and you have a lot of third parties in the middle. And then you also, at the end of the day, the artist is left, who is the actual creator, right? Is left with very little of the proceeds that come from their creation. And in this space, it's you're actually taking that out. The artist has the power, and you are the one that is, has a control and the rights for your production. And not only that, you get royalties, which means that you you get a percentage of the proceeds, of your work, of every transaction that is being made on it. And this is not about money. This is actually, and I know that I said the word money and what profits the artists get, but it's not about the money. It is about the fact that, artists and creatives and creators, we have not been getting our rights in the traditional field. And this is a technology that is giving back the rights to the artist. And even, for example, Facebook, Instagram, and all these platforms, you're constantly creating content, and you're constantly bringing value to those platforms, bringing users, and they're using your content without even giving you any rights, or without giving you any part of that. And I just think that's not right. So what we're trying to do here, and what Web3 is trying to do in general, is giving back those rights to the creators and giving that power back to the creators. It's all about empowering the creators. And I think that's a beautiful thing to do, because for such a long time, that empowerment was taken by corporations, centralized corporations, and now it's just a decentralized system where everyone is a part of it, and everyone's collaborating together. And as creators, you have total rights over what you're doing, and you have total control over what you're putting out there. And I think that's the beauty of it.
I think if I translate that to the thought process of a lot of architects who are working in the physical world, not in the metaverse, a couple of really common complaints, or not. I don't want to diminish these two complaints. I mean, these are real world problems. Are copyright. I design something and someone takes my design and uses it, et cetera. And then also the idea that if you are an architect and you design something, you get paid however you structure your fees. Maybe it's a percentage of construction, and it's such a small percentage of the construction costs relative to the contractor or other people in the process. So if I translate that back to what you're saying, you're really talking about taking control back and empowering more theoretically, through the maybe NFT process, the smart contract process, and the decentralization. Like here's a way that we can control copyright. Here's a way that we can take the middleman out, I think is one of the ways that you said it there. Does that match up?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a really beautiful way of putting it. And that's pretty much it. How do we take out the middleman, and how do we give back that power to the creator? And I think that's all what it is about at the end of the day. And we have this beautiful question up there that I ended up looking at. It says, if we wanted to try designing for the metaverse, what communities should we be a part of so that we can both learn and contribute? And it is all about that, learning and contributing at the same time. I think it's so important. And you mentioned at the very beginning about a DAO, and how we at Spaces, we are trying to be structured as a DAO as well. And decentralized autonomous organizations are all about contribution, learning, and growing, and empowering your community at the end of the day. So it's I think it's the future of work, if I may say it. And we can explore that further on as well. But I think, to answer that question, I think being part of a DAO is definitely a way to learn and contribute. That is a game changer.
Okay, so this is the first of my many dumb questions, and I can Google it. Jeff, sorry, but is DAO a place? Is it a website? Is it just a? I'll just Google it. Jeff's looking at me like, oh my god.
No, it's like a company structure. So I wouldn't call it a startup, but it is like a startup. So what you have is a different structure to the company, where in which you don't really have a single person, or you don't really have that hierarchy. So instead of the hierarchy, you have the community, and based on how much you contribute to the community and what you bring to the community, you're rewarded. And that's basically how the DAO works.
Hmm. All right, I'm gonna have to Google that later. Jeff, we have a few questions in here from YouTube, and they were kind of what we were talking about this morning. Is it okay if I ask them?
Yeah, please.
Well, what are you going to say at this point, I guess? Question number 1. What are the skills and tools, including softwares popular in the metaverse industry today, one need to learn in order to build a successful career as an architect of the metaverse? And when we were talking about this earlier, we were trying to not have it be a how-to sort of thing, but I think a lot of people might be interested in knowing what kind of software you use.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
definitely.
so I'll just jump in real quickly. I think it would be good for us to kind of walk through the basics because we just don't understand them. So, so yeah, this is a great starting point. This question.
Yeah, I'm glad to answer it. It wasn't a long time ago that I was graduating school and I didn't know anything about building in the metaverse. So I've been through that process, and I've been through the process of learning. And for me, it was basically like first I went on the different metaverse platforms and just started to experience it. So a lot of them are open, and you can go on them and you can create your avatar and walk around and experience the different spaces. And that was definitely the first step I took. I wanted to know how it looks and what it feels like. And each of them have their own building program. So with your basic 3D modeling skills as an architect, you can bring those assets and you can bring those files into those metaverse platforms. But there are certain rules and there are certain limitations to each platform that you'd have to look into. For example, Decentraland has limits on polygons. It has limits on size in terms of the parcel size. So if you're building for a 1 by 1 land, it's a 16 by 16 meters land, and then you have a certain limit of height that I actually don't know on the top of my head. Like, what is that number? I think it's 20 meters, if I'm not mistaken. And then, for example, the sandbox is a bit more different because it's a voxel-based metaverse platform, and they have two programs that they've developed, and it's free to use as well. One of them is available for both Mac and Windows, and the other one is only available for Windows as of right now, but they're gonna make it available for Mac very soon. And these two programs are the Vox Editor, where you create your assets, and then the Game Maker, where you bring those assets and design a game and an experience where people can use. And they're very user friendly. Like, I mean, you can learn those on. They have amazing Discord channels where you can ask your questions. They have YouTube channels where you can watch the videos to learn that. That is basically what I did when I started out. I was watching YouTube videos, I was going on Discord asking questions like, I have this problem, I can't get this to work. How do I do it? How do I fix that problem? And this is like my ways of going around it. And you have a lot of different ones that work on higher graphic quality. So, for example, with Unreal Engine or Unity. And I think that that really is the feature of the metaverse. So, as architects, we don't really tend to work with Unreal Engine or Unity in school. And if you wanted to learn a skill that was outside of the typical 3D modeling programs that we would use to practice in the metaverse, I'd definitely suggest working with these two programs, Unreal Engine and Unity, really game-changing programs that I think it's really important to master.
Is that what you're using?
For some metaverse platforms, yeah. For others, we do the typical, like, I mean, in Decentraland and Sandbox, Sandbox has their own programs to design. So we use that. For Decentraland, we use typical 3D modeling, whether it's Rhino, Blender, Cinema, 3ds Max, and then we bring it inside the platform. And then there are other ones, like for example, Leapin, and they work exclusively with Unity and Unreal Engine, and you have to bring in those files. And it's a very higher graphic quality for those metaverse platforms, because I'm not sure if anyone here has actually seen Decentraland or gone into it, but it's not very high in terms of the graphics quality, because also they wanted to have it open, so it couldn't really be something of a really high graphic quality. If not, it wouldn't be able to be a very open metaverse and accessible. So that's why.
Well,
Uh,
I feel like I'm learning a new language because some of what you just said I understood, whereas 3 weeks ago I wouldn't have understood any of it. So at least I'm learning. There's a lot to learn. It feels like, but maybe once you get to get into it, then it's not. Can you make your own avatar and bring them into different metaverses? Because I went into Decentraland and then there's only so many skin colors or only so many hairdos and whatever. So I was wondering if there's any way I could get someone to build a more exciting one, or do I need to do each one? This really frivolous question. We have so many other questions. Okay.
I love that question. Can I answer?
Yeah. Okay. I mean,
Okay. I mean, honestly, for me, equality and inclusion is such an important topic in the metaverse. And that's very much related to what you're saying with the avatars, right? It's so hard to relate because it's kind of like you having your second identity in that space. And it's really hard to relate to those avatars that you create. And I think that's a topic that we're going to be focusing on a lot. But in terms of customizing your avatar, there are platforms like Ready Player Me where you can create your avatar and then bring it to the metaverse, and it's more customizable. And also you can acquire wearables and different clothing to accessorize your avatar.
okay.
Well,
I asked the hard hitting
I hadn't
questions.
I haven't even thought about it in terms, when you were speaking just a minute ago about Decentraland being less graphically sophisticated. That's not the way you said it. You said it. You had a better way of saying it, but um, that makes sense now that I hear you say it. That when we're talking about accessibility, there are plenty of us that might not have access to programs or skills or training or anything like that, and so that's a part of it that I had not even considered. So I appreciate you bringing that up as well. Sylvia had a question here. She says, as architects, we make sure that we involve and provide more priority towards cultural aspects. How can we involve that in the metaverse? Basically, how are we going to address them? It's a great question.
Such a great question. I don't think I have a straight answer for that, but there are beautiful projects. I mean, it is one of those hard ones, and it is something that we're going to be looking at quite a lot, I think. And I've seen some beautiful projects of people that are bringing rebuilding historical and cultural sites inside the metaverse for you to have an immersive experience of it. And I was thinking the same thing. So I come from Iran, and we have a lot of beautiful ruins, ancient historical sites, and whenever I visit them, I feel like I'm missing something, right? Because you don't get the whole picture. And I'm always thinking of how we can recreate them inside these platforms. And I know there's 3D models of it and renders and images, but it's still, you don't get the sense of the city how it was back then, or you don't get the sense of that space. So having them inside 3D in these metaverse platforms, I think it would be so cool to like go over that and bring that cultural aspect into it as well, so we can get to experience those spaces in a more immersive way.
That would be awesome. Yeah. That's what I'm excited about for the metaverse is not only creating new types of spaces and seeing where that goes without the constraints of our physical world here, but also just being able to experience other cultures or other times or cities in different eras. I hope that develops.
Definitely.
So, as I said in the introduction, you're the founder and chief metaverse architect of the Spaces DAO. You essentially went straight from architecture school into the metaverse. Is that correct?
Essentially, yes.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I guess one question is why, right? Many of us went to architecture school, and some of us had a dream of, well, I didn't. This was after me, I guess. But some had dreams of working for Zaha or some famous architect around the world, or starting their own firm or something like that. And you latched right on to the metaverse and what you're doing now. So the question is, why did you make that leap immediately instead of maybe going out and working for a firm in the physical world?
Yeah. I did work like as in internships during my studies, and also I took a gap year between my bachelor's and my master's, and I did do internships. But as soon as I finished my master's, I went directly towards this. And I'm gonna give a background. Honestly, I felt like I always wanted to have something of my own, because working in architecture studios, I'm not sure how it is I mean, this is my personal experience. It was not very fun. I was working long hours. I was not getting rewarded for my work, and I was not feeling appreciated. I was not feeling happy. I was just like, I wasn't even really enjoying the project. I didn't get a say. I didn't get a choice. It was just basically like, you're on the computer, you're doing things you don't even want to be doing, and it's like, why, right? What is the purpose? And I always like to ask that question: why am I doing this? What difference am I making, and what is different from what I'm doing? And that's what fulfills me. And I don't want to be working just to be working. I want to be working and doing something that really fulfills my soul. So that was one of the things I encountered during my work experiences. And then I was always interested in blockchain technology. I was very fascinated by it. And I was always interested in how I can bridge my interests in technology, art, and architecture, which were the three pillars that accompanied me throughout my whole career. And I really wanted to bridge the three of them together and create something beautiful out of it. And I was blessed to be surrounded by people who were working in the space that really introduced me to. I had friends who had a startup and they had a land in the central land and they wanted it designed. So they were like, hey, would you mind designing our land in the central land? And I thought that was really cool, and started going into it, experimenting with it. And as soon as I did that build, I realized this is so exciting and this is so cool. I started doing my own research, freelancing and working by myself. And slowly it built into the startup. And we are a small team of 6 now. So it was a journey, but it was a beautiful one. And I'm really happy I made that leap. And yeah.
Well, this kind of leads into this question of how do you find clients? How do you market yourself in the metaverse? How do you get to be known? Is there like a directory of architects? How did you get more work?
I think what I did was basically go to a lot of events that were related to metaverse, blockchain, and try to make connections there. And being active on social media, most of our clients go find us through that, and also like being on directories of different platforms. For example, the Sandbox has a creator list for artists and architecture firms that work on their platform, and they have about like 25 offices on their platform right now. So it's really beautiful to see that the community is growing, and being on those lists is really important as well. And it was just really funny how we even managed to be there. I was on Twitter one day, and there was a tweet like, "Hey, we want to onboard more artists and showcase your work. Please send us a message or something." And then I did, and then 1 week after that, I ended up being in Paris for NFT Paris, which was this conference, and I ended up meeting the founder of Sandbox there, and he was super sweet. And I like, he was very excited to meet creators that are doing something on their platform. And that's basically how that happened. And in general, that's how it is. It's a very small community still. And I think the best way to find clients is through networking, whether it's through virtual events, physical events, just being out there and talking about your work and what you're doing. I think that's so important.
So it's kind of the old-fashioned way.
Yeah.
I was going to say
Nothing
it's very
changes.
similar to a physical firm, say based in Boston or something like that.
Yeah, but you can also do it through the metaverse. So, for example, you have a
Mm.
building that is on the metaverse. That's also happened recently as well. So, you have a building on the metaverse, and you have the name of your studio or who you are on that building, and someone goes into it by accident or happens to hop into it, and they love the space, they love the experience, and they contact you to do something for them. So that's also another way that you can market it. But initially, I guess it's through traditional networking, and then
Mm.
as you have your builds in these metaverses and people encounter them, and if they like it, they'll find you.
So that kind of leads to my question that I had, which was, how do you set fees in the metaverse? If someone, besides your friends, if they come up to you and say, I want you to build, and actually I'd be interested to know what kind of buildings you have been asked to build in the metaverse, but how do you set your fees for that?
That's a very, very good question, and one that I don't think there are any rules around. So it's very much open, and everyone's just doing their own thing about it. There's no consensus on how do you set your fees in the metaverse. It's very open. But what we like to do is we like to take into account the size of the project, pretty much like you would in the physical world. So, for example, is it one parcel of land? Is it two parcels of land? 10? And then the second layer that we like to look into is what are the game interactions they want to have inside of it, because that's an extra added layer that we have. It's not just designing that land, but also the interactions that come inside of it. So if it's a full-on game and a lot of interactions happening inside of it, that's a lot more work on our side, and we take that into consideration. And if it's just like, an art gallery where the only interaction you have is the artworks being exposed and then you being able to find them on the secondary market, that's like the minimum interaction you would find in the space. And yeah, those are like the two main factors we take into account when we're setting our fees.
So if you're doing
And
a gaming one, then do you what would be an example of one that has a game sort of inside of it? Because we've seen art galleries, and I think we can all picture that. But are you talking about like if you go to like a hockey rink, if you make a hockey rink, and then there's stuff happening that you can interact with inside? Is that what you mean?
yeah, that, or even for example, right now there's alpha season 2 of the sandbox happening, and if you go inside, there's you have typical spaces. It can even be a concert space, it can be any kind of space, but you have tasks that you have to achieve inside any of those spaces. So for example, you have to find these specific coins that are scattered around, and in order to find them, you have to pass through hurdles that are designed within the experience. And that's the kind of game I'm talking about. And also, I think it's so important to involve that. And what we have at the core of our studio is we're not just architects, we're also collaborating with game developers. And I think the combination of the two is the perfect fit for the metaverse. Because when you go to a building and the building, or when you go to an experience in the metaverse and it's not interacting with you, it gets really boring. You want that space to be interactive. You want to have things popping at you. You want to be like 100% engaged into the space, and the more engaging it is, the better the experience. At least from what we have, what we experience, and I think that's so important to achieve that collaboration point is so important.
I heard you talking about that on another interview where you were talking about the experience and the interaction in the metaverse. And obviously there's limitations, right? You may be doing it, you may be experiencing it through your screen, or maybe through VR, but maybe we talk about that as well, because not everything has to be through VR. But is there something for architects who are designing only in the real world or also in the real world? Is there something to be learned about design and experience and space from the metaverse that can be translated back to the real world?
Definitely. I think I've also talked about this project. That is one that I'm super excited about. It's called the Omniverse project by NVIDIA. And I think it's honestly the future of BIM technology. And, the metaverse is not really a technology that is 100% focused on the virtual world and the virtual life we're having. It is a technology that is going to help our real world problems and how to facilitate or how to make that easier as well. So Omniverse is a project by NVIDIA. It's a metaverse through which engineers, architects, designers can collaborate real time on projects that are going to be built in the real world and can test those projects virtually, which is something that is really amazing. And I think honestly, it's the future of BIM technology, and it's a more interactive way of how we can collaborate as architects for buildings that are going to be put into the real world, and how we're going to make sure they're functioning perfectly, and how we're going to make the adjustments and that collaboration more interactive.
Yeah, I think that's really exciting. I heard you mention that on one of the interviews I listened to, so I've been poking around it a little bit, and I agree. I think that's really exciting, and even people in the community who may look at the metaverse and say, "Oh, I'm not interested in the virtual world or in gaming or anything like that." I think that is something that could get people who just want to focus, and I shouldn't say just, but who want to focus on the physical world. I think that's something that could get them excited about metaverse technology.
Definitely, I think so too. And I think there's no problem in that. Everyone has something they want to be focused on, and I totally respect that. And I think that we need to understand that this is a technology. This is not, like at the end of the day, technology is here to essentially make our lives easier and provide us easier, like a better way of interaction, better way of doing our tasks, and we can take that into our advantage in whatever it is that we're doing. So, for example, building in the real world, I would definitely use Omniverse.
That's good to know. So all of you out there who are wondering,
Okay.
check out NVIDIA. You know NVIDIA already. I mean, their chips and things are in your computers. So just Google NVIDIA and Omniverse. For those of you who are in the Entree Architect, who are members of the Entree Architect Community Facebook group, and anybody that's an architect is invited to join that community. It's a community just for architects. But I've posted links to interviews with Fatemeh and also the NVIDIA Omniverse and some other resources there that you can just click and check those out. There's a lot of fascinating stuff out there.
Mm.
I think Audrey's. I'm going to pop this one up here, Katharine. I think Audrey's question is a great one.
Oh.
Does the metaverse market want quote unquote normal designs, or is it deliberately more fantastical?
I think it depends. So, for example, with us, what happens is that some of our clients have an audience that are very much metaverse ready, and they already want to create something fantastical because they know that their community is wanting that experience of the metaverse as an escape from the real world, and they don't want to see the same things that they see in the real world. They want to kind of escape it, to go to these like unimaginable, unbuildable spaces. And then there are other ones that realize that their community is not 100% ready, and you can have fantastical spaces because that's really going to scare them on their first step. So they need to take that step by step, and they need to make more humanized and more familiar spaces initially to allow that transition to the metaverse for their community. So I think that it depends on what you're trying to achieve, what your community and your audience requires. And that's the path that they take either way. And I respect both. I think that it's important to make sure we're onboarding, because at the end of the day, none of this matters if we're not getting involved, right? So onboarding in the right way is so important. And if it's needed to keep the design simple, perfect. And if you feel like the design needs to take a whole new turn, and that's really cool too.
That, what would be fun is if it got more fantastical, like the deeper you get into it. So at first it just seems normal, then it gets a little, kind of like the those Italian gardens that get more wild as you get farther away from the house.
That's so cool. I love that idea.
Let's work on that. We'll work on that one.
Yeah, let's do it.
There are several questions popping up about NFTs, and it makes me wonder. Back to Katharine's question about setting your fees. We've talked about maybe the business of being a metaverse architect a little bit. How do you develop your contracts as a metaverse architect? Are you using quote unquote NFT smart contracts to do business as a metaverse architect, or how does that work?
There are two things that you do as a metaverse architect. So one is you're creating NFTs, or you're creating designs by yourself. You're not commissioned to do it, and then you're putting that to sell, and that will basically be the typical NFT thing. And then the other aspect is you're commissioned to do something. And when you have a commission-based project, you can't really work as you would with NFTs. You can't have royalties. You can't have IPs. Like you have to give away all of that as you would in the real world, right? And that's a conversation that's really interesting, and I'd love to explore further as well. But with commissions, what happens usually is you have a typical contract where you deliver the design and it's not yours anymore. You can use it for your portfolio, but that's pretty much it. And then with designs that you're creating as NFTs, then you get to have them as NFTs.
Okay, that is interesting. So is that a rule, right? That
it's not a rule. There might be someone out there who's getting royalties on their commission-based projects. I'm not sure of it. I mean, if they are, then fantastic. But what we've noticed is that it complicates things quite a bit, and especially with IPs. So we have to give those rights away when we're commissioned to do something. Especially because most of these projects are going to be used by the owners to create some sort of function or project out of it. So it's hard for them to get other parties involved if they don't have the IPs of the design. So it gets more complicated on that side.
Yeah. We're going to have you back to dig into that because that I think we could go down a real rabbit hole there, and I'd love to go down that rabbit hole.
Definitely, yeah.
Lots of rabbit holes with this topic. I mean, that's the thing that's so great about it. There's so many different angles. And if I may ask another one of my questions, which I'm going to because here I am. So I've been watching all your interviews and watching documentaries and things like that about metaverses and cryptocurrency and blockchain and everything. And my niece was saying that she doesn't want me to get involved with it because it's environmentally unsustainable. So then I started looking into certain green currencies, and I guess there are two different ways of trading cryptocurrencies. And so, what kind of I don't want to. Well, how concerned are you with environmental impact, and how do you lessen that? And is it something that people are working on?
Yeah, it is. So you have two different types of blockchains. You have the type of blockchains that are proof of work, which means that there needs to be computational power for that blockchain to be working. And then you have the proof of stake, which does not require that computational power. And essentially, the proof of stake blockchains are way more sustainable, and the proof of work blockchains are not that sustainable. Although, for example, Ethereum is a proof of work blockchain, but they are working on transitioning to a proof of stake. So that is something that is being worked on, and a lot of the transactions in the space are happening on the Ethereum blockchain, which I understand that it is not sustainable, but a lot of them are already moving to more sustainable platforms. For example, the Sandbox as a metaverse is already moving to Polygon, which is a proof of stake blockchain, and it's going to be more sustainable. And it is a topic that I've realized that it's been spoken a lot about in the space in general, and it is not something that is not of a concern to people. But I think when we talk about sustainability, we need to look at the whole big picture, right? How sustainable is it to travel miles across the planet to get to a different place to meet a family member or to go for a business call or to go for a meeting? How sustainable it is it to move every day with your car from your home to the office? You know, moving virtual as a whole society, we're taking out a lot of the parts of our aspects of our lives that are not sustainable to begin with, like traveling,
That's true.
moving to work, and you're staying at home, you're working on your computer, and you're already like decreasing your carbon footprint by a huge number. So I like to look at it as the big picture, honestly.
Yep, I like that answer. Well, I'm glad that people are working on it. I assume that it's just going to get better as time goes on. So,
Yeah, I also too.
why don't they have any legs in those meeting spaces? Is it because they don't have the pants, or like, will there be tights eventually that you put on so that you can feel yourself walking and sitting? Because I think the other thing is that you can shake hands with gloves on, right?
Yeah. Okay, so I'm not sure how valid this answer is, but I believe I heard somewhere that, and the one that doesn't have legs is actually Spatial. In the Decentraland Sandbox, we do have legs. And Spatial .io is a platform, is a beautiful metaverse platform that I love working on. And they have, you can have it through a you can use it through a web experience or through VR. And what happens is that with VR, you have the remotes for your hands, so it can recognize your hand gestures, but it doesn't recognize your leg gestures. So if you're moving, it does not recognize that. And one of the things that they're doing is they're not putting in the lower part of the body until technology can recognize that movement as well, so it can be fully involved.
Okay.
That makes sense to me. It's not about pants.
It's not about the pants.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense to me too. And
yeah, that's true. It's not about the pants, and that would be kind of awkward. And then I won't even get into how awkward that could be. Next question. Okay. Well, Christian wanted to know, if there was no chance to make money in the metaverse, would you still do it?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Good answer.
Yeah.
And why?
I think,
and why?
I would love to answer the why, honestly. I think that a lot of the times when we're working, we focus on the financial aspects of things. And maybe it's just because I've been privileged enough to think this way, but I've always thought about how am I feeling? You know, I think that it's so important to feel comfortable with what you're doing and love what you're doing. And I have found a place where I'm happy. I found a place where I am, I love what I'm doing. Even if I'm working 24/7, having your own startup is not easy. It's a full-time job, and I'm never tired because I love what I'm doing. And I think that's the most important thing. At the end of the day, if you love what you're doing, the rest you can live with. And it's true that at the end of the day, we need to live, we need to survive, and we need that financial side of it too. And I hope the day doesn't come that because of financial reasons, I have to quit what I love doing the most. But I'm gonna stay tough until the moment I can.
I think that's a really great answer. And so Christian asked that question this morning on Clubhouse as well, and I flipped it back around on him, sort of as a test, because it's, if I flip it around and I say, okay, well, would you do real world or physical world architecture if there was no money to be made there? And that's it's almost kind of funny, because a lot of architects would say, well, there's not much money to be made in real world
That's it.
architecture. But
Yeah.
but um but I think the answer is very, very similar to the answer that you just gave. And I love that sort of proof from both sides that, yeah, it's not about the money, it's about the passion, the experience, the purpose, maybe one way to say it. And Christian answered yes, he would do it in the physical real world as well. And I think probably for very, very similar reasons. So I think you're on the same page, even though yours is digital and his is paper.
Yeah. It's beautiful. I love that.
The I realize we're at the top of the hour here, so we'll again, this is one of those conversations I feel bad about ending, because I'm happy to sit here for about 3 hours talking about this, but we're going to wrap it up. It's getting into the night in Madrid where Fatemeh is, so we'll
Yeah.
wrap it up here in a minute. But I think the burning question for a lot of people is, you've done a great job of walking us through, kind of the basics of how you do this, and why you do it, and the marketing piece of it, which is fantastic. Um, what's it for someone that has listened to this conversation and commented throughout this conversation, been a part of this, that says, this is fantastic, I want to know more. What's the one place or the one thing that they need to do today to kind of dip their toe in and start feeling things out?
I would definitely go and have an experience in the metaverse. It's not hard. For example, in the Centerland, you can literally go in as a guest. You don't have to give your email, no information about yourself. It's a very, very quick and easy process through the web, and you just go in and you walk around and you experience it. And for me, it's always been about learning by doing. And if you're curious, if you want to learn, I highly encourage you to do something about it. Whether it's going into the metaverse platform like the Centerland, which super easy and accessible, or Spatial.io as well has beautiful rooms and spaces that you can explore just on their website. We don't have to give any of your details either. And I think that's the best way to learn and to experience the metaverse. So learn by doing, yeah.
I think that's a fantastic answer, and it goes back to what you said earlier, about the community where you can learn and do at the same time. I think that's a beautiful answer, and again, I would assume the vast majority of us in the room, we don't really know that much about this. It hasn't been around for that long, I guess. So doing, as you said, doing and learning is a great process, and an important one at this point. I'm going to pop up on the screen here the URL. I just
Yeah,
messed it up.
thank
There it
you.
goes. There it is. So one place you can go to learn more about Fatemeh and the Spaces DAO is the URL is at the bottom left of your screen right now, spacesdao.xyz, which is fascinating. I have connected with Fatemeh via LinkedIn and via Instagram and via Twitter. So I know that she's active in all of those places on social media. How do you prefer that people get in contact with you?
Any platform is good, honestly. I don't really like getting connected on Instagram. I don't know why, but Twitter and LinkedIn are actually the best ones. So, and anywhere is good, anyways. So, I'm happy to answer all your questions. I'm always welcoming newcomers to the space, and I'm happy to get into a conversation with any of you.
Well, I've enjoyed every one of the conversations I've watched you in. So I'm going to find you on LinkedIn so I can be notified of all the rest of them because I learn something new every time.
Thank you. I
Thanks.
appreciate that.
Uh-oh.
Jeff, we can
I
hear
muted
you.
myself while I was talking and forgot to unmute myself, or while I was typing. Yes, I had a typo there, so it's spaces DAO, not spaces DOA. So spacesdao.xyz is the URL. For those of you who are architects, if you're not familiar with the Entree Architect community, there is a community on Facebook. Just search the group. Entree Architect Community Facebook group. It's for architects only. It's a safe place for architects to gather and have conversations about architecture and about being an architect and all those things. So first of all, I encourage you to join that group if you're not there already. And if you are there, go up to the top of the page there to the featured tab. And every Saturday morning, I let you know who we're going to talk to next week on Context and Clarity Live. Say, this is who it is, this is what they do, this is a little bit about them. And I ask you, what do you want to talk about? And then throughout the week, as I'm researching and as I'm learning, I drop some of the resources in the comments under that post. So right now there are 10 or 12 resources in the comments under the post about Fatemeh. So if you want to listen to some of these interviews, if you want to check out some of these websites and articles and the NVIDIA Omniverse, all of that is already there for you. Just go up to the feature tab, find that post, and you can just start clicking to your heart's content and learn more about that or about all of these things. So with that, let me just let you know that next week on Context and Clarity Live, James Carberry, the author of Content-Based Networking, will be joining us for Context and Clarity Live. I have recommended that book to many, many of you when it comes to marketing and connecting with your ideal clients and creating a platform. Maybe it's a podcast, maybe it's a blog, whatever it is. I've recommended that book to a lot of you, and we've finally been able to get James Carberry on the calendar. He will join us next Thursday. So next week we'll probably talk about marketing a lot. So look forward to that. But with that, this has been a fantastic conversation, Fatemeh. I really appreciate you being here. We've got a lot of people saying, hey, you need to come back for round 2. So hopefully we can arrange that. I think we have a lot of people that would love to come back for a second conversation.
Yeah, and maybe we'll look into it before you get back, so we'll have a different set of questions.
Awesome. Yeah, I would love that. Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
Absolutely. It's great to have you here. And so here's my challenge to all of you that want Fatemeh to come back for round 2. We're going to talk to her about having her come back, but between now and then, you have to explore some of these platforms that she's talking about, some of these worlds, and maybe even try to mint your own NFT or do something. I know it's a little bit more advanced, but we all need to be exploring so that we have more and different questions for next time. So that's my challenge to all of you out there. As usual, I appreciate all of you Thank you for joining us for this conversation. Again, I say this every time. Thank you for making context and clarity a thing, because without this, we probably would never have had this conversation with Fatemeh Monfared, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it. So thank you for making this a thing. Everybody out there, I know you're spread all around the world, which again is fantastic. Great to have all of you here. Please take care of yourselves. Be well and be safe. There's a lot of craziness going on in the world right now on a lot of fronts. So keep yourself safe and well. Keep those around you, those that mean the most to you, safe and well. And take a little bit of time to breathe and relax and rejuvenate, because we're going to do this all over again tomorrow. But take care of yourselves, both physically and mentally. We want you all back here as soon as we can get you back. So again, thanks everybody. Appreciate all of you. And depending on where you are in the world, I hope you have a great day or a great afternoon or a great night. And hope I'll see you around somewhere sometime soon. Thanks, everybody.